নমস্কার বন্ধুগণ। জাগো সনাতনীর অ্যাডমিন প্যানেলের পক্ষ থেকে আমি শ্রী অভিজিৎ প্রতাপ রায় আপনাদেরকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। আম, আমাদের সাথে আজকে খুবই স্পেশাল একজন গেস্ট এসেছেন সুদূর আমেরিকা থেকে, এবং প্রাথমিকভাবে উনি কোনো কথা বুঝতে পারছেন না আসলে, কারণ আমি বাংলায় কথা বলছি। বাই টেকিং পারমিশন অফ হিজ অফ কোর্স, সো আমি আপনাদের সাথে পরিচয় করিয়ে দিতে চাচ্ছি শ্রী দিবালা রিসের সাথে। উনি একজন আমেরিকান নন ডুয়েলিস্টিক্স এবং অদ্বৈত স্কলার। আপনাদের সাথে এসেছেন রামচন্দ্র এবং শ্রীরাম মন্দির নিয়ে কিছু কথা বলার জন্য। তো a warm welcome to you, brother. I am Abhijit Pratap Roy. Welcome to the Hindu Tribune.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
Great to see you here, and it is my humble gratitude to you that you have been joined with us from a very far away, and permits us to have some nectar from your divine knowledge. First of all, namaskaram to you, Namah Shivaya. How did you embrace Hinduism, and how did you know about it?
Uh-huh. I was raised Hindu from birth by my parents, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, both my parents are Hindu. They actually, the first Hindu in my family goes back to my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother. They all discovered it through learned different styles of meditation. Actually, my grandmother, it started very auspiciously with through Lord Ganesha for her. Auspicious beginning of Hinduism in my family, all the way back in the late 1960s.
Okay.
Both my parents were they learned meditation from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. They both lived in India for quite some time. Different parts of India, Bangalore more than anywhere else.
Okay.
They studied under a few different gurus. They were mainly following Advaita, or non-dualism.
Okay.
And yeah, by long before I was born, I was raised Hindu from birth, and not only just by them, but I grew up in a Hindu community, largely of Indians, living in the United States, going to a temple, celebrating all the festivals. So yeah, I grew up with it my whole life.
All right. Okay. So you mean that you were the second generation of who is following the Hinduism, right?
Second, or a little bit even third, with one grandparent. Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Could you please tell me how your grandfather or grandmother get to know about it? Because we are very much interested about it. Yeah.
Yeah, my grandmother. My mother's mother. Yeah, it was, I believe, I don't know the exact year. I think it was in the late 1960s. She was specifically searching for a spiritual path outside of Christianity. She had been brought up Christian, but she felt that Christianity was not it was not answering her questions to her satisfaction about spiritual reality. She felt it wasn't the path for her. She was specifically looking for another path. The story is funny. She walked into a bookstore, a spiritual bookstore in the city of Portland, Oregon, in the United States. And she saw there was a little book on Lord Ganesha, which is that was a rare thing in America in the 1960s. That would be unusual to find a book on Lord Ganesha.
Indeed.
Today, not so unusual, but in the 1960s, that was unusual. But she found one and immediately felt a connection. I think it must have been a past life sanskara, right? She just immediately...
Or maybe Lord Ganesha connects with her.
Yeah, or maybe he reached out to her, sure.
Right.
But she immediately felt a connection. She bought the book. She read the whole book. She knew nothing else about Hinduism, India, no knowledge, but she had this one book in English on Lord Ganesha. She started trying to do her own Ganesha puja. She had never once seen a puja, never heard anyone do a puja. She tried to just learn from this book. But she knew that, that this one book, it was a start, but it wasn't enough. She learned more and looked up other books. Paramahansa Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi was one of the first ones that she read, learning more about Hindu Dharma. And then after a couple of years, she found Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, learned transcendental meditation from him, and that was her daughter, my mother, got into that as well, and that's from there they got deeply into it, mostly through Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
Wow.
Yeah.
Then how did you get to know those books, like those critical books called the Brahma Sutras, the Bhagavad Gitas, the Rama Gitas, the Ashtabhakta Gitas, and all those critical books? You get to know something about it, and I have seen that you have very deep knowledge about it. Then tell me something about it, and what is the secret? I want to know.
Yeah. I grew up reading all those. So by the time I was born, my parents had been in India for years studying under primarily Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, but other gurus as well. There was a big home library of Shastras. So I grew up like so many kids in India and Bangladesh on Amar Chitrakatha, the comics.
Wow.
I grew up, reading hundreds of them. All of that. As I got older, I started reading other books, like a huge one for me when I read it when I was, I don't know, maybe 11 years old or so, was the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. That was a huge book for me. I loved that one so much. I read the whole thing.
You mean the Ramakrishna Kathamrita, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Read the whole thing in English. This is the title, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah. And then I started reading actual Shastras, like you said, the Bhagavad Gita. I read the Bhagavad Gita actually even earlier. And then I read more. I read the, you mentioned Rama Gita. Yeah, that's part of, I read the whole Adhyatma Ramayana, Valmiki, Tulsidas, all of these, and other, about other deities as well, Bhagavatam, and many. I loved all of it. I read all of this stuff over the years of growing up, and all my life I've studied these texts.
So, brother, I have a very embarrassing question for you, which might face you embarrassment, but it is a very prevalent question for all of us who resided in Bangladesh, and especially in eastern part of Bangladesh. So I'm sure that you read so many Abrahamic books like the Torah, like the Old Testament, the Bible, the Quran. How would you distinguish between these Semitic books with these non-Semitic books like the Bhagavad Gita, like the Puranas? How would you distinguish between these two?
Yeah, I find them fairly different. There's some similarity. So yes, I did read those. I was never brought up Christian at all. It was purely Hindu. But later on, actually, it was later in my life. Out of curiosity, I went and read the Christian Bible, and I did read through a translation of the Quran. What I found was the biggest difference. Well, I guess I'll start with the similarity. They did have a similarity of praising God, praising the divine, and this a general orientation to orienting one's life around divinity and around a spiritual focus on God. The difference, the striking difference to me, was that they insisted very strictly on one narrow path. That the whole tone through them, that I read through the Bible, both the Old and the New Testament of the Bible, and through the Quran, was they're laying out this one narrow path of following the laws of the Old Testament, following that Jesus Christ is the only,
Savior.
Yeah, the only Savior, that the quote, "No man comes to the Father but through him."
Right.
Or through the Quran, that the only path is Muhammad as the seal of the prophets, and so on. Whereas it struck me reading very different, having already grown up on the Puranas and the Bhagavad Gita and so on. What I was used to was, quotes like straight from the Rig Veda of the reality as one. Sages describe it in various ways, or Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 21 of whichever divine form a devotee desires to worship with faith,
Worship me. Yeah.
I assume that form,
Right.
which is firm and in accordance with their faith. And you'd find, that all these, from the perspective of even within Hindu sects or a certain sampradaya, even outside of non-dualism or Advaita, it's still much more open. Like from the perspective of, say, so the temple that I grew up going to in my hometown, it was a Shakta temple.
All right.
So going to a Shakta temple, they regarded Adiparashakti as Parabrahman, as the supreme. But from the perspective of a strict Shakta, these were South Indian style Shaktas, Srikula
Yes.
Shakta. According to them, a Vaishnava is not following some wrong path. Like, the Vaishnava may think Mahavishnu is the supreme, the Shakta may think Adiparashakti is the supreme. But according to the Vaishnava, the devotees of Shakti are making spiritual progress. They may one day step on.
They'll reach their goal and they will find the salvation, right?
Yes, and same from the Shaktas to the Vaishnava. They will their path will work. It will lead them toward salvation. So it's this much more open and expansive view of spirituality I found in the Dharmic Shastras versus the Abrahamic texts. I would say that was the essential difference that I found.
So you mean that there was no collision, like the word only,
Right.
that word triggered you, that the word only makes me no sense. That's why you think that these things might follow the true path.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Devala, my next question to you is, how did you get to know about Lord Rama and the temple, the crisis of the temple, which is embracing in the Indian people? How did you know about it?
Rama was my main family deity growing up. So my mother did puja every day to various devatas in my childhood home, but her main deity and the main household deity was Sri Rama. So our central shrine, we had a beautiful murti to the whole Ram Parivar, Ram, Sita, Lakshman, Hanuman. Every day there was that Rama puja that she did was sort of the center. I would always come to that one. She would, when I would hear her ringing the bell, I would come bow down to Lord Ram. So that was always kind of the center of our home puja. And in the sense of, if I were to say I have a Kula Devata or like a family deity, I'm not from an Indian family, so it's not in the strictest traditional sense, but I have always taken Sri Ram as my Kula Devata, as my family deity, because he was the main deity for my mother and for her mother. So I found out about him that I just growing up with Ram Puja every day in my house. I then like every year Ram Navami was a big my mother would celebrate Ram Navami puja with a big special puja. There was one way in which I felt very close to him. Actually, I came very close to death when I was 4 years old. I was
how could you please tell me the details about how?
Yeah, my appendix ruptured. The appendix organ ruptured, and I was in the hospital, very close to death. And my mother was with me, and she thought that I might die. It was like the doctors were saying it was very possible that I might die. And so she thought her son might be about to die at the age of 4. She came to me and she told me to just constantly repeat Ramanama. Just, not even anything long like Sri Ram, Jai Ram, or anything. It was just Rama, 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 Rama. She just said, just keep repeating Ramanama. because she wanted to. She hoped that it would pull me through and save my life, but also she thought that if I were to leave this body, it would be the most. She wanted me to be in a spiritually beneficial state, leave the body with the Rama Nama. So I didn't die. Obviously, here I am. I did make a recovery, but that was I had this, even at that age, I had a sense of death, and that I knew that I had some idea that I might die, and some idea what that meant, and clinging to the Rama Nama through that. I wasn't even as a prayer to survive. It was just letting everything go, but dwelling on the name. And this was later on when I was older. I took Guru Diksha in techniques like this, more specifically from a guru, of this sort of Nama Japa or Mantra Japa. But I got this deep sense of it, that particularly that day when I was 4, on the edge of death, just like on Rama, Rama, Rama. It was an experience that stayed with me. I've always remembered that, of letting the body, like I feeling like I might have to let my body go, like I might just die, and accepting that. I wasn't afraid. It was like just letting everything go and dwelling on the name. And since then, for me personally, it ended up becoming even more close with Sri Krishna. But Rama has always been my family deity, and it was Rama and not Krishna that time when I was 4 that I was clinging just to the name of Ram. And that.
Do you find any difference between these two?
On an ultimate spiritual sense, they are the same, of course. There's differences in their specific lila, the specific story, the specific surface expression. That one might appeal more to a certain devotee and the other to a different devotee. But no, they're certainly one and the same on a deeper level. Yeah.
Okay. Some people speculated that that the 32 verse, which is Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, do you think that they speculate that the Rama name is actually the Balarama, not the Lord Rama? What is your views regarding these issues?
Well, we kind of just said it. What is there any actual difference between the two? Like for a devotee can just as well take whichever one. They are all forms of the same divinity. They're all forms, even specifically of Vishnu. Rama, Balarama, Krishna are all manifestations of Vishnu. So yeah, a devotee, if a devotee practicing bhakti, if they connect better in bhakti with Sri Ramachandra, then they can take it to Ramachandra and to Krishna. If they connect better with Balarama, then fine either way. The one interesting thing, so the original time, so in popularly through the Gaudiya Sampradaya, the mantra is the way that you said, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In the oldest Shastra in which this mantra appears, the Kali Santarani Upanishad,
yes,
it's the other way around. It's Rama first. Yeah.
Yes, Rama first, right.
And so the fact that it's Rama first, it could be Balarama in that he was the elder brother, elder to Krishna. He was born first. But very rarely in the Shastras is Balarama worshipped first before Krishna and given greater worship. So I would suspect that in the original sense of Kali Santarani Upanishad, that it was meant as Ramachandra rather than as Balarama. That would be my guess. But it's not really important. A devotee can just as well take it either way.
That's a very wonderful logic, brother. I haven't heard such a strong, shielded knowledge and logic from any other gurus here residing in Bangladesh. Anyway, so to you, what is your feelings when you heard the word Rama? Does that mean any connection, like the emotional connection? Like when I heard the word Rama, when I uttered the word Rama in my mouth, I felt like I have a deep emotional connection with that particular name or the sound or the person, whatever the name or sound is. Do you think the name contains some kinds of emotional power which might connect all the peoples around us, all the peoples around the world? Do you think this word contains some power or any emotional connection?
Oh yes,
Be-
yes. It holds a strong emotional connection for me. I mean,
Mhm.
I grew up hearing this name. You know, it just as an emotional connection. I've heard this name all my life, and known what it meant, and worshipped Lord Rama, and dwelt on the name as a meditation, and so on. So yeah, if I hear Rama, it's immediately like the sense of that the teaching always is that Ramachandra, the divine being, is not different from his name. The name alone is the fullness of Rama.
Mhm.
Just the name Rama, the Rama Nama is Rama himself. This is repeated by Rama in the Adhyatma Ramayana. This is also in repeated by Lord Shiva in the Vishnu Sahasranama Palasruti about the power of the name of Rama.
Mhm.
That to repeat the name of Rama is equal to repeating the entire 1,000 names of Vishnu.
Right.
All of this. So yes, there's an immense power in the name. And yeah, if I think, speaking in terms of like emotionally to me, if I just think or say the name of Rama, I just like this. It's like a warmth in my heart, a warmth in my chest, and this feeling of like Rama is my Lord, my King. I like, yeah, this is completely deep in my heart that I just want to, if I just like bow down to him, bow down to the name. There is no difference between the name and him himself. Yeah, that's absolutely how I feel.
How do you distinguish the adjective called Maryada Purushottam?
Maryada
After
Purushottama. Yeah, Maryada, like the literally speaking, it would mean like the limits of man, sort of. But the idea of Ram as Maryada Purushottama is that Rama, he was a human avatar of the Lord,
Mhm.
took birth as a man, and he exemplifies the ultimate degree of perfection of a man. Maryada being like to the furthermost limit of humanity. He shows the full potential, the maximum degree of knowledge, of wisdom, of kindness, of power as of prowess as a warrior, uh, of wisdom and ability as a raja, as a ruler, as an example of dharma. In every aspect, he was the perfect, utmost example of a man. That's essentially what Maryada Purushottama refers to, and it's a huge part of the significance of Rama as not only a god to be worshipped in like the Western sense of a god as
Mhm.
something outside, but also a role model of like the example of dharma
Right.
for all of us to aspire to and follow. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And he even, adding to your statement, he even sacrificed his wife for the people.
Hmm.
He was a great king. Think of a king who is sacrificing his better half, the most lovable one,
Hmm.
who crossing across the sea and go to a demon king and kill that person for his wife to establish dharma and brought her back to his kingdom, and he just sacrificed herself uh, for the people. So indeed, he's the ultimate role model for us. But some of the people around us, especially the people who is pretty much inclined to the left wing, uh, they your chuckles told all the story, brother. Anyway, so they speculates or they preaches that the person is not worthy enough, as if he sacrificed the most lovable ones, Sita, because of his pride, because of his honor. What is your say regarding these statements? The people who speculate such things.
Yes. Well, So I'm going to answer this on two levels. First of
Sure.
all,
Yeah.
this is that is not. If you read the Uttarakanda of Valmiki Ramayana, that is not what it says. That it was not about. It was not framed as about pride and honor. It was framed as about setting an example of dharma for the people of the Rajya, of Kosala Rajya, of the kingdom. That it wasn't about the personal honor or shame of Rama as a man. It was about setting an example and setting a standard of dharma, since the people of the kingdom will look to the king as an example of who sets right behavior and so on.
Right.
But there's a second level to this that I since you brought this up, I will mention this. There is considerable debate among not just between people on the left, you mentioned on the left wing, but within very traditional Hindu dharma, like even among Shankaracharyas and among many old Rama Bhakti Sampradayas, about the authenticity of this story of the Uttarakanda. In that, so one thing that has been found, it is a historical fact, in fact, from Bengal.
Exactly. Yes.
The oldest copy of Valmiki Ramayana, which has been found, it was in Bengal, does not include Uttarakanda. It
Indeed.
is
Yes.
6 kandas, ends at the end of Yuddha Kanda. And the end of Yuddha Kanda, if you read to the end of Yuddha Kanda in Valmiki, in the unabridged, the full, it really sounds to me like it is the end of the Ramayana. It ends with describing the whole reign of Rama, it says bringing the Ramayana to an end. It closes the Ramayana. It gives the Palasruti of the entire Ramayana, not just the Palasruti of Yuddha Kanda, but the Palasruti of all the Kandas. And then it ends. It gives no indication that there's now another whole Kanda coming. It reads like it was the ending. And many Sanskrit scholars have, going through in the original Sanskrit, have said that Uttarakanda, it reads like the Sanskrit language is of a different style, different style of poetry, it tends to use different words, and have thought that it is not by Valmiki. It reads like it's added later by a different author. And so I know that one example, certainly not someone who's left wing, but Shankaracharya of Jyotirmat Brahmananda Saraswati, Shankaracharya during the 1950s, around that time. He said that the story of Rama sacrificing Sita was not true. That he did say, yes, Sita raised their 2 sons, Lavakusha, not in Ayodhya, but in Valmiki Ashram. But that it was not because she had been sent away into exile by Rama and Lakshmana, but to raise the 2 princes away from the opulence and the worldly hustle and bustle of the royal court and all of this, but to give them a more spiritual upbringing in Valmiki's ashram in the forest. And also one thing that is often, so there are at least 2 places that claim to be the site of Valmiki's ashram. You know how often there'll be, like 2 different places claiming, like, of where was Sita born. There is one in Nepal and one in India that both claim to be Sita's birthplace and so on. So like this, there's 2 places that claim to be Valmiki's ashram, but the more commonly recognized Valmiki ashram is right next to Ayodhya. Like it's not some far away place. You could walk there in like a day, maybe 2 days. So it's not as though this was some distant exile where she's off in a forest. Like like someone could walk between there and Rama's palace in a day or two. So it doesn't look like a distant exile. It looks like they were being raised in the ashram, to give them a spiritual upbringing as children before they are thrown into all the riches and the politics and everything of the royal court. So that was the teaching, and by Shankaracharya, Brahmananda Saraswati, and also, of course, many versions of Ramayana, also like Tulasidasa's Ramacharitamanasa. It does have an Uttarakanda, but the events of the Uttarakanda have some differences from the Valmiki's version. So yeah, there's that whole last part of the story.
Okay.
There's a lot of different interpretations of it. Yeah.
Okay, so you are sensing some kinds of interpolation between this the Valmiki Ramayana and the Kirtipashi Ramayana, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Then
Yes.
some of the viewers asking me questions like the first question about the Ramayana, the Labkusha. Isn't it making Labkusha an imaginary character to you?
No. Lavkush appears in many texts. It's not only Uttarakanda of Valmiki Ramayana. Lavkush appears, so in all the different Puranas, it gives the whole, the Suryavanshi lineage, or the Raghuvamsi lineage of the descendants of Rama. All of them have Lavkush. Every single one of them. Lavakusha are mentioned in Mahabharata as well, referring, at some point it refers back to the lineage of the dynasty all the way back to Raghu and before Rama, through Rama. Every text, every lineage text in every version of Ramayana and Mahabharata, in all the different Puranas, Bhagavata Purana, Vishnu Purana, they all mention after Ramachandra, Lavakusha then took the throne of Kosala Rajya. So no, very clearly Lavakush were the sons of Rama and succeeded him as king of Kosala. Regardless, even if we throw out the Valmiki Uttarakanda, we have Lavkush from many other sources.
Okay, so brother, look at this question. You have mentioned about the Jagadguru Brahmanand Saraswati. So look at this question of Max Tennyson. He is stating that Jagadguru Rambhacharya
says it is interpolated, but Nishchalananda says it is not. This has been a debate going on for a long time. This has been a debate going on since at least since like 1200, almost 1,000 years. Like I know that the people were debating this in the year 1200 AD. So I'm not going to tell people which one they should follow. If you are welcome to follow the teachings of your guru, follow the teachings of your follow what feels right to your heart, but to come to your own understanding of Ramachandra, and you can follow which one feels right to you. For myself, my personal opinion, I think that the Valmiki Ramayana is 6 kandas, ends with Yuddha Kanda, and I reject the Uttarakanda of Valmiki Ramayana for myself.
My next question to you is, which translation of Ramayana seems very much authentic to you?
I don't have one favorite. I've read a few different translations. I would say, in general, with translations of Ramayana, or not just the Ramayana, translations of Shastras in general, every translation is going, certainly in general, I will prefer translations from someone who is deeply within Sanatani tradition, rather than like a Western academic translation.
You mean parampara?
Yeah, parampara. Yes, within parampara, rather than a Western scholar. Western scholars are going to read it in such a different way. But even within parampara, any translation is going to be they're going to be writing with a certain, like if say that you have an English translation that some Parampara Swami did in the 1920s. If they're writing it in English in the 1920s, then they were writing for the British readers and for readers who were going through the British education system, right? So they're going to be speaking with kind of to the thought of that time. They often try to put things a little bit more into terms that feel familiar to Christians, because they are assuming that their readers are Christian or have been given a very Christian influenced education. And so you even if they are a Parampara Swami, they will be sort of, they're thinking, why are they writing an English translation? They're writing it for this particular people, so they very well might take, like, even for example, translating, if they're writing about a saint like Ramakrishna Paramahansa,
like Tulsidasa,
or like Tulsidasa, they will often try to emphasize things like Advaita philosophy, non-dualism, but they might cut out things like some of the Kali Bhakti of Ramakrishna, thinking like this is not, Westerners are going to have a harder time understanding this. So if we are reading it today, it's important to understand the translator was making decisions about what to emphasize, what not to emphasize based on who they were talking to. And so I think to get a good sense of it, if you're not going to learn Sanskrit and read and be able to understand the original, what I would really recommend is read more than one translation. Because if you read multiple translations, then you'll really get a sense of like, okay, this one sort of downplayed this aspect, but this other translator brings it out more. That's how you really get a better sense of the wholeness of the original Shastra.
Now, I'm highlighting a question that what about the Goldman translation, which all leftist scholars, mention it or quote it. What is your views about it?
I'm not going to say don't read the Goldman translation, but I wouldn't rely on it. And honestly, I would say that of any one translation. Don't rely on any one translation, but particularly with the Goldman translation, with coming at it from a Western background like this, there's going to be a lot of things that are read very differently. Like when it comes to a translation of a text, the Western academic approach, especially when it comes to Indian texts generally, and this goes for the Goldman translation, but this also goes for translations of the Vedas by people like Max Mueller or other translators. Their approach is to take the text in isolation. They'll take like a Sanskrit glossary of Sanskrit words, like from Panini's grammar or other Sanskrit glossary texts, and they'll go word for word. This word means this. This word means this. And a big difference from how anyone in Parampara or anyone in Sanatani culture will understand it is they usually ignore the cultural context. And this will lead to a very different understanding of the text, because these texts were not written in a vacuum. They were written with a cultural context of they'll make references to something expecting everyone to understand it. Because you have to understand that like a text that was written thousands of years ago in India is assuming that the people will understand the context of what's being talked about, and it will drastically change the way they understand certain things. And so I think that a very common flaw in Western translations, including the Goldman translation, is they will read things a way that no traditional Indian or traditional Bangladeshi would ever read it, because you have this wealth of familiarity and cultural understanding when someone references Ma Kali, you know who she is. You don't have to like reference it in some glossary and have a very vague understanding. Like
exactly,
a text can just drop it and you understand. Like and the text, like every line of the text is going to be full of references like this, that someone in the culture will understand a certain way, but a Western translator going just off of a glossary is going to come up with a very, very different interpretation. Yeah.
Got it. So my next question to you, brother, is what is Ram Gita?
Ram Gita. So there's the most famous Gita, of course, Bhagavad Gita has become, that's the one everyone knows. But there are many, many Gitas. There's Rama Gita, there's Shiva Gita, there's Devi Gita. These tend to be where this form of divinity, in this case we're talking about Rama, is directly teaching a sort of overall holistic teaching about spirituality, about in the case of Rama Gita, it's Advaita philosophy very strongly, and the nature of the self, the relation of the self or the jiva to spiritual reality, the general nature of spiritual practice, of sadhana and how to reach moksha, is the focus of every Gita. Every Gita is the teaching of how to reach moksha. So when I was growing up, one of my favorites, I read Valmiki, but one of my favorites was Adhyatma Ramayana, where Rama Gita comes from. And in this, it really brings out Rama's divinity, Rama's knowledge of his own divine self. Valmiki is more emphasizing Rama the man, as a human, as a prince and as a human character. But Rama Gita, especially Rama Gita, but the whole Adhyatma Ramayana really brings out Rama as a divine being who inwardly, secretly knows that he is divine. And so Rama Gita is Rama's direct teachings to Hanumanji. He's speaking to Hanuman, explaining who he truly is and the real nature of all of reality, that of non-dualism, that the everything in existence is the same Parabrahman, that the entire Advaita philosophy, but taught directly by Sri Rama to Hanuman. This is Ram Gita. Yeah.
So do you find any abridgment, like you taught, like you find in Brahma Sutra, in Upanishads, there is a word called Tattvamasi, and I know that in Rama Gita, in third chapter, I have read that the word Tattvamasi. So,
yes.
Do you think Adi Shankaracharya derived the word Tattvamasi from Rama Gita?
No, I do not. The Tattvamasi, it derives from Chandogya Upanishad. In the so it's these Mahavakyas, Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, all the great Mahavakyas. They appear many times. So yes, Rama quotes this, but Rama himself was the Vedas. Rama as a prince, as Prince of Ayodhya, was taught the Vedas growing up by Guru Vasishta. Rama's Guru Vasishta taught him this. Vasishta would have taught Rama Tattvamasi. Rama, of course, is Bhagavan himself. He is the Parabrahman. He has all knowledge. But in terms of using this quote, Rama is very clearly quoting his guru that he taught this. So I don't think that Adi Shankaracharya took it from Rama Gita. He himself quoted it very directly to Chandogya Upanishad, is where he learned it. But yeah, you'll find the same quote in not only two places, but in more shastras as well. And all the Mahavakyas like this, they're many different Guru Paramparas will repeat it in different shastras.
Okay. Devala, my next question is, do you consider Ramayana as an historical evidence or a mythology? Because I have seen so many Hindu pages or so many Hindu scholars in India, in British, in India, in America, name it. They mention the word mythology, Hindu Puranic mythology, the Ramayana mythology, the Mahabharata mythology. So What is your views regarding this, the word mythology or historical evidence in terms of Ramayana?
There is some historical evidence. It's a debate that you can have with historians over how much evidence. Is it enough evidence? It's certain. So when you say mythology, people will often think in terms of some like familiar stories of like Greek mythology or so on.
Exactly, the Nordic mythology,
Nordic
the Egyptian
mythology,
mythology.
right? Yeah, sure. So I think that misses one. I think that somewhat misses one point of saying, if you take a figure like, say, Odysseus from the Odyssey, from the Greek Odyssey, it's a character that's completely sort of floating free in a nebulous ancient time. It's not like rooted in history. Rama, we have the texts of not just, so I mentioned Lavkush, Rama's sons. We have their sons. We have their sons. We have every generation right down into deep into historical times. Like clearly recorded into medieval India, the lineage of Rama. We have the lengths of the reigns of each of these kings down to the number of days, not just the number of years, but the number of days. There's extensive historical records of Rama's entire lineage. So he's not just floating free without being set into a context of very clearly kept records. So that's a striking difference from saying something of pure mythology, the way people often think of it. But are those records reliable? Can you check them with other sources? It goes back into such ancient times that there's no way to prove it to the standards that you could prove someone in medieval times, or even say like in the time of like the Maurya dynasty, for example. It's so much more ancient. There's all over across the whole of South Asia, from Ayodhya all the way down to Sri Lanka and everywhere in between, there are places associated with Rama. People remember, like, from big things like the city of Ayodhya to small things like, here is where Rama, Lakshmana, and Sita crossed a river.
Right.
There's thousands of them, thousands and thousands of such places. But can you prove them? Like it's all oral. Like the people there have just been saying this
like the word of mouth.
Yeah, word of mouth from ancient times. So you can debate over how much historical evidence. It's certainly true that there is some historical evidence. We have clearly kept records. But how strong is the historical evidence? Historians can debate that. But I would disagree with the word. I think that calling it history, I think that calling Rama history or mythology both miss the point. Mythology is sort of relegating it to these old stories, like Greek mythology, Norse mythology, the way people often think of that. History is relegating it to the past. Neither one is the importance of Rama. Rama is a living god now to a billion Hindus. It is neither history nor mythology. It's a living present divinity. The importance of Rama is the importance of Rama to us is far more Rama now today versus Rama, whatever Rama did thousands of years ago. Rama is a living divinity within us now, who we can thousands of initiated sadhakas are practicing Rama Upasana now, gaining spiritual knowledge and making progress toward moksha through Rama Upasana today, through Ramanandi Sampradaya, through these thriving traditions of people experiencing Rama today, right now. So I would say that Rama is a far more important than history or mythology is Rama as a living divinity now. And I think that debate sort of misses that essential point.
Right.
Yeah.
You are going beyond the history and mythology about the Lord Rama.
Yeah, because what he did or didn't do 10,000 years ago is far less important than Rama as a living divinity to a billion people right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So Right now, I'm going to read some comments. There are lots of questions and comments are there. Um, I think Max Tennyson, he's already answered this question, that how he became an non-dualistic.
Interested Advaita
Yes,
Vedanta, yeah. Well,
yes, you already answered that.
I will make one slight more comment on that. So I mentioned growing up with my mother as a child, but when I was 12 years old, I found my guru. I took Diksha under Mata Amritanandamayi, South Indian guru. She teaches Advaita. So I've more formally studied Advaita Vedanta under her for many years in her ashram, going through the Upanishads, going through Adi Shankaracharya's commentaries under her and under her swamis. So yeah, I got it more deeply into Advaita that way.
So do you get to know Adi Shankaracharya from your very childhood, or you just get to know Adi Shankaracharya from Amma?
I knew before Amma. Yeah, I learned a little about Adi Shankaracharya from my childhood, but I didn't read the Brahma Sutras as a child. Deep philosophical texts like this I read as an adult later, studying. So I as a child I greatly respected Adi Shankaracharya. Actually, every day my mother did a Guru Puja, going through the parampara, and Adi Shankaracharya was in that puja far back in the parampara. So I heard her chant his name in puja every day. So I had a sense of him. But in terms of actually reading his works and studying him, that would be hard reading for a child. That's fairly dense philosophy. But yeah, so I read that later on.
Right. Okay, so the next question is that Sri Ramachandra, Purana avatar of Lord Vishnu is wrong. Okay, what does Purana say about it?
Yes, absolutely. Sri Ramachandra is a Purana avatar of Lord Vishnu. The Puranas are explicit on this point. He is listed as a Purana avatar in Bhagavata Purana, in Vishnu Purana, Padma Purana.
Purana.
They all agree. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I think this question is pretty much interesting.
Shweta Loka, yeah, or often they call often it's called Saketa Loka or Saketa Ayodhya. Yes. So very more widely known is Vaikuntha Loka, the divine world of Lord Vishnu. So but there are many Vaikuntha Lokas, different regions of Vaikuntha Loka for all the different avatars and forms of Vishnu. There, Goloka of Lord Krishna, and of Lord Rama. It's most often called Saketa Loka, where there is. It's called Saketa Ayodhya, not the Ayodhya here on earth, but the divine Ayodhya, the heavenly city of Lord Rama. Yeah, there's in some of the Shastras there are beautiful descriptions of Saketa Loka, where so there's different types of moksha, Salokya moksha, Sarupya moksha, Sayuji moksha, so on. There's 5. So for bhaktas, followers of Bhakti Marga, one reaching moksha through the Bhakti Marga depends on the specific type of sadhana they follow and so on, but through Salokya moksha, this means that you become free from punarbhava, from the cycle of rebirth, and go to the loka of your Ishta Devata, of your beloved deity. So the devotees of Rama, yes, the Shastras and the Ramanandi Parampara and so on all say that that the devotees of Rama who follow this path in the Bhakti Marga go to Saketa Loka, and are never drawn back into rebirth here, that they can dwell eternally.
They find salvation, right?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
So I think another interesting question is, can we say that Hanuman is another manifestation of Lord Rama? There is no difference between them?
Okay. On the ultimate sense of like Advaita non-dualism, yes, there is no difference between anyone on that, on the ultimate Advaita level. It is all Brahman. But if we're talking about, is Rama an avatar of Vishnu? Who is an avatar of who? Hanuman is not a manifestation of Rama. Hanuman is an avatar of Lord Shiva. this is explicit even in Shiva Purana, in like the Shaiva's own scriptures. It explicitly says Hanuman is an avatar of Rudra or Shiva, and is a great devout servant of Lord Rama. So on the ultimate level, sure, there is no difference between them, just as you could also include any form of God into that, Ma Lakshmi, Ma Kali, anyone, they're all the same non-dual Brahman. But in terms of whose avatar is Hanuman, it is clearly Shiva.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Another interesting question is, has Lord Rama ever showed Vishwarupa to anyone?
Like Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, showing Vishwarupa to Arjuna. Right. I believe so. Off the top of my head, where in the Shastras does he in Rama Gita? It's been some years since I've read it. I think he does. I would have to check the Shastras to be sure. But I'm pretty sure there is somewhere. I think it might be in Rama Gita. The last time I read through Rama Gita was several years ago. I would have to check that but I'm pretty sure somewhere in Adhyatma Ramayana, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Max, we'll get back to you about it.
Yeah.
Sure thing. Okay, so she is, I know her, she is a kind of feminism inclined person. So
got it.
She was mentioning that if you said that there might be some interpolation between these two, but if it's true, if the word contradictory, the word Marayata Purushottam became contradictory when he did such thing to Mat Sita.
Yeah, Pratana, I agree with you. Yes, I'm gonna say yes. It would be. Now there's people who disagree with this, who do accept the story of him sending Sita away, and that gets into a debate of dharma. Of is it better to set an example for the people of the kingdom? And there's people who have written long philosophical commentary on this, how it would be adharma for anyone who was not the king to do this. Actually, this is an important point. The Dharma Shastras, Dharma Shastras and Dharma Sutras, which are actually two different things, but both of them, the Dharma Shastras and the Dharma Sutras, have verses explicitly talking about what a husband should do if his wife is raped by another man. They all unanimously say that that this does not give the man the right to reject his wife. That in such a case, there is no wrongdoing by the wife. He should keep his responsibility to continue to give her shelter in his home and to care for her is not absolved. She has done nothing wrong, and he absolutely is still completely responsible to do his pati dharma, or the duties of a husband. This is explicit in all the Dharma Shastras and Dharma Sutras. And so this is one reason why I do regard this as an interpolation, that Rama, as the ultimate exemplar of dharma, would be violating the Dharma Sutras explicitly if he rejected Sita over this. So yeah, Pratana, my answer is absolutely yes, it would be. I think that Rama, to take Rama as Marayata Purushottama, I reject that he exiled Masita. I think that it would set an example of adharma for the people if to mistreat a woman in his kingdom for not only something that wouldn't have even been her fault if it did happen, but moreover, even the Uttarakanda of Valmiki Ramayana explicitly says that Rama knew that the rumors against Sita were false. So to me, I think it would set an example of adharma if he punished someone for something that he knew wasn't even true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I agree with her.
I want to add something with you, Devala,
sure.
that in terms of our Griha Sutras and the Raj Dharma, there's something called Raj Dharma, which a king obliged to observe in his kingdom and in his political career. So along with the king, the queen also has some duties towards the
Of
nation,
course,
towards the people.
of course, of course.
So, indeed, whatever you have said or you stated earlier,
Mhm.
indeed a true matter. But when it comes about the Raj Dharma, yes, he's talking. I mean, Devala is talking on the perspective of a person, like a man or woman or a husband or wife. But my perception is kind of in a very broader way,
Mhm.
like in a holistic approach, like a king and a queen, and king is getting some rumors, some questions regarding his queen, and also the queen also heard about it, and Mata Sita doesn't complain about it, anything. Whenever I read about Mata Sita's exile and Agni Pariksha, uh, she doesn't have any complaint regarding this, but Lavakusha does.
Yes.
So there are some obviously some interpolation, but also I think you might have in mind that Lord Rama is not just a man; he was also the king, and Sita is not just an ordinary woman. She is
Yes.
also an avatar of Lakshmi Mata and also the queen of a kingdom.
Mhm.
So by abridge all the things together, I think we are not enough to raise question on Lord Rama and Lord Sita's deed, but also about their teachings, what they try to taught us whenever they take avatars in this Thailand. Anyway,
Yes.
moving on. Sorry about it,
No, no,
Devala.
no. Yeah. There's a whole school of thought of interpreting the Raj Dharma like this. I'm well aware.
Right, right, right.
There's been 900 years of philosophical debate over this.
Indeed, for such a long time. Anyway, yes, we already talked about it. Max Tennyson, Ramagita also explained about the Tattamasi, and we already talked about it earlier.
Mhm.
Some of the person who belongs to Bengali, he or she got very much interested about your thought. That's why he or she make a comment like
Broadcast
this.
in Bengali. I do not speak Bengali. I speak a little bit of Hindi. I've
Mhm.
never even been to Bengal. I would love to visit Bengal one day, but no, I do not. Sorry, I do not speak Bengali.
Okay, so moving on to our next question. What is your opinion? Okay, that's a great question, Max Tennyson.
Oh yeah,
What is your opinion on Rama idol of Ayodhya Mandir?
the idol specifically.
Yes.
Yeah, Ramlala. Yeah, I
Mhm,
love it. Yeah, I thought it was beautiful. I watched the whole inauguration ceremony with
mhm.
PM Modi and the whole um, yeah. I am so happy about Ayodhya Mandir. I know there was you might be getting at it. There was some controversy over the Shankaracharyas and so on. I I am so happy about Ayodhya. The whole thing. It was a huge. Um, Actually, I should say this because it might be interesting to hear. You were close. You were in Bangladesh, and some of your most of these people are in Bangladesh or in India.
Mm.
How important this was to Hindus on the other side of the world in America. It was a
Oh.
big deal. It was a
Mhm,
really big deal. So I went to my local temple. They were doing a live stream of the whole thing, and we were doing
mm.
Ram Puja, Ramanama Japa together on that night on the 22nd. Um, just talking to people there, they were saying um, even people. I was talking to, just to give an example, I was talking to a Hindu woman. She's
Mhm,
not a Ram Bhakta. She
mhm,
is a Advaitin, actually follower of Ramakrishna Vedanta Society,
mhm.
and Bengali, and she mainly practices Durga Puja, like more of a Devi Bhakta. Even she was saying she feels like Rama is returning to us after 500 years in a deeply important way. She spent the
So
whole
many
day
people have cried, brother. So many
she
people have
spent her
cried.
whole day, yeah, but I'm saying, like, here in Portland, Oregon, in the United States, this,
Mhm,
like, this woman who's like working for an Intel company in America,
mhm.
she spent the whole day cleaning her home to welcome Ram to her home. because she felt that Ram is coming to the world in a really real way after 500 years. Yeah, that's how we feel here too, on the other side of the world. This was a huge deal for all Hindus. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But some of the people, like the followers of Shankaracharyas,
Okay.
also stated that, yeah,
I know.
that question will came. Yeah, that
Okay,
question will
so
came
I'll
to you.
talk about that. Yeah. So why? So yes. Some of the Shankaracharyas objected. Actually, different Shankaracharyas had different objections. But the main one that got quoted was objecting to doing the prana pratishta in an unfinished mandir.
Temple. Yeah.
It depends on which agama you are following. So different temples around all across India, Bangladesh, everywhere follow different agamas. There's hundreds of different agamas.
Exactly.
Some of the agamas explicitly say that you may not do prana pratishta until the temple is complete. Other agamas explicitly say that it is okay as long as the garbhagriha is complete, or the sanctum, the central sanctum. The rest of the temple does not have to be complete. You can go ahead with prana pratishta. So it depends on what agama you are following. The Shankaracharya's tradition, the Shankaracharyas are completely correct about the tradition that they follow. Of course, they are the experts in the Dashanami Sannyas tradition that they follow. The Ayodhya temple, Ram Janmabhoomi Mandir, is following Ramanandi Sampradaya. It's a Vaishnava Sampradaya. It's a totally different set of Shastras that they're following, the Vaishnava Agamas. I'm not an expert specifically in the Agamas of the Ramanandis that they were following, but they are more the authority on their Agamas than the Shankaracharyas are. Like I would absolutely defer to the Shankaracharyas on the running of the Shankaracharyas temples, like Jagannath, Rameshwaram, Dvarakadish, and Jyotirmat, for the Shankaracharya of the North. But and there were, yes, this is true. I see Max saying, yes, some of the Shankaracharyas supported it. Some of them objected for other reasons about the political controversy of it, and they thought that the whole event was overly politicized rather than being focused on spirituality. Look, there was a little of that. Like for sure, like I'm a supporter of Modi, but Modi was certainly using this to try to help re-election. It's not a coincidence that we did this during this year. To me, that does not invalidate this. Like it was inevitable that Ram Mandir in Ayodhya has always been political for for 80 years or more. There was never a way to avoid that. I think that it was done I think that it was done in a good way. I approve of the way it was done. It was obviously it was a very auspicious muhurt they chose for the day to do it. They did the rituals properly. I was overjoyed to watch it. I didn't have a problem with the way it was done. I think that the Shankaracharyas are admirably holding to a standard that is just not always going to happen in Kali Yuga, right? Like, sure,
that's what I wanted to say, brother. Yeah.
Aspirationally, you could say it would be ideal to dream of a world in which there was no political overtone. It was pure spirituality without any political calculation, without any idea of Modi and the BJP trying to win re-election points. And the temple could have been completely finished construction, but just realistically, this was the best it was ever going to be, and I think it was really well done.
Exactly.
That's basically how I feel.
Okay, so our last question. This is our last question from the spectators. Here you go.
Okay, Prarthana. Hanuman carrying the mountain. I fully accept it. Yeah. So her question, perspective on Hanuman carrying that mountain. How are we going to explain it to non-believers? Why do we need to explain it? Like this is my point.
let me add
Bhakta.
something to you,
Okay,
Devala.
sure. You can add something.
Okay. Pardon my intrusion to
No,
your
yeah,
wonderful
go ahead.
speech.
Go ahead.
So I want to add something, and with prarthana to you, that
Sure.
we are the minorities in Bangladesh and in a radical Islamic country, and
Yeah.
we have been facing the forceful conversion or smart conversion, especially in Bangladesh. The forceful conversion is very little, but the smart conversion uh, is very, very high, especially in the medical sector and the government sector and the
Hmm.
banking sector as well. So we have been questioned several times, especially by the Islamic scholars and the leftist
Yeah.
in a very rigorous way. That's
Yes.
why she is facing such thing
Yeah.
in her area.
Yeah. I understand. I understand the context. So here, twofold answer. What I mean by why do we need to explain it? Let me explain where I'm going by that. The Hanuman carrying the mountain is not important to Hindu spirituality. Hindu spirituality is about philosophy and sadhana. It's about, like, Advaita philosophy, Vedanta, yoga philosophy, the by far the most sophisticated systems of philosophy in the history of the world that any human culture has ever produced. That is the essence of Hindu spirituality and practice, sadhana, meditation, the upasana. This is the essence of the importance of Sanatana Dharma. Like, Hanuman carrying a mountain is, as a bhakta, I accept it, and it may be, it brings, like, for a Hanuman bhakta, it'll bring joy to your heart, but, like, Sanatani spirituality does not rest on these stories. It rests on very advanced, sophisticated philosophy and spiritual practice. And I think that to get into, if critics are arguing over, like, whether they're, academic, atheist, scholars, leftists, or whether they're Islamic or so on, to get into nitpicking these stories is so missing the point of Hindu spirituality and Hindu philosophy. And so I would essentially raise the point that these, like, it's not as though our religion hinges on Hanuman carrying a mountain thousands of years ago. That's so beside the point. Like, there are many devout Hindus who don't even believe that, and it's not an obstacle to their spirituality. This is kind of my same point with talking about Rama in history, or Rama as mythology. Both miss the point. The point is Rama as a living divinity in our consciousness today, not what Rama did or didn't do 10,000 years ago, or what,
Exactly.
or what. Yeah. So that's one thing. Also, so talking about the Bangladeshi context specifically with Islamic pressure, I'm well aware of that. That's something I've written about more than once. The problems of Bangladeshi Hindus under the pressure from Islam. Pick your battles with bringing this up if you want to bring this up. But Muslims who are bringing that up are kind of throwing stones in a glass house. Like, you can just flip that back about, like, what about Muhammad splitting the moon in half? Is that any,
And also riding to the seventh
right?
star or seven skies,
Yeah,
riding on an donkey. Oh my God.
yeah. So, like, I don't know where they where they think they're standing from to criticize
Exactly.
Hindus over a story like that. Yeah, yeah. So
Exactly. That's a very good answer.
if it's a Muslim, yeah. Obviously, that was not going to work if it's an academic, secular atheist. But if it's a Muslim who you're being given that question from, that's pretty easy to throw back at them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know Max Henson highlighted this thing, I think, to Prarthana, but he has done a spectacular comment which doesn't, if I am not answered that, or you don't answer that, it will be a crime. This is the thing. Who is Chaya Sita?
Chaya Sita. Yeah. So for anyone who, probably most people know the story, but to give the story, many versions of the Ramayana. Actually, let me start by saying there is a common misconception that this was a poetic invention by Tulsidas. This Chaya Sita was not an invention by Tulsidas. Chaya Sita is explicitly in many shastras, ancient shastras, far before Tulsidas. Chaya Sita is in Devi Bhagavata Purana, various other Puranas. It's various versions of Ramayana, not only Tulsidas. The story goes that Sita was never so the Chaya Sita version of the story is that Sita was never actually abducted by Ravana and taken to Lanka. That they knew in advance, Rama and Sita divinely knew that the Leela that they had come to Earth to do required Ravana to abduct Sita to give Rama the justification to rid the world of Ravana, who was oppressing many peoples. It wasn't just over Sita. So the story goes that before Sita's abduction, in secret, they invoked Agni Deva, the god of fire. Agni Deva took the real Sita into his care to Agni Loka. And Agni produced an illusory form of Sita called Maya Sita, illusory Sita, or Chaya Sita, Chaya meaning shadow, shadow Sita, to put in her place. And that it was Ravana, it was Chaya Sita who Ravana abducted, who went through all the suffering in Lanka, and not the real Sita. And that after the war, after Ravana was slain, the Agni Pariksha of Sita was the swap back. That Chaya Sita entered the fire, Agni appeared, switched them back, returned the real Sita, and took away the Chaya Sita. And Agni at that time added the assurance of Sita's chastity as to spare her any public shaming, just to assure everyone. Even though she had never even been touched by Ravana, she had never even been taken to Lanka. So that's the story of Chaya Sita. So, like with the Uttarakhanda, some people accept the story of Chaya Sita, some do not. It does not appear in Valmiki Ramayana. It does appear in Ramcharitamānasa of Tulsidas. It appears in many Puranas. I would have to look up the exact list of which Puranas. I know off the top of my head, Devi Bhagavata Purana has Chaya Sita. Some others, I think Kurma Purana. Pretty sure Kurma Purana has Chaya Sita. There's several. There's about 4 Puranas, I think, and various versions of Ramayana also have the Chaya Sita story. So that's Chaya Sita. Yeah.
So my last question to you, brother, we are about to end the session. My last question to you is, do you have any message to the devotees of Lord Rama, and do you have any message to the people who make differences, who make the supremacy of the Ramas rather than any other deities of Hindu religion? Do you have any message to them?
Of the supremacy, people who are Rama supremacists, yeah. I'm fine with that. Like, I follow Advaita myself, but like I was saying at the very outset, with the attitude of the Puranas, like Ramanandis think that Shaivas are making progress toward moksha. Shaivas think that Ramanandis are making progress toward moksha. We can all follow our preferred form, and yes, there's philosophical disagreements of is it Advaita versus Dvaita and so on, but Advaita followers think that Dvaitins are making spiritual progress. Dvaitins think that Advaitins, they might be mistaken, but they are making progress in the right direction. Like we are all, there isn't this conflict within Hindu society the way that there is between like Judaism and Islam, for example. So I'm not, if people think that Rama is alone the supreme, like Ramanandis, that doesn't bother me. I follow Advaita. My school is different, but I see them as brothers and sisters in Dharma. I love Rama. I think Rama is a form of the supreme. I worship Rama as my family deity. I love Rama in my heart. So I'm completely fine with Ramanandis or people who feel that way.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess I would say my message. Yeah, sorry.
So you go on, please.
Okay.
Go on, please.
My message, I think perhaps the best message I can give, coming from my perspective, as a Western Hindu here in the United States, talking to you in Bangladesh, is Sanatana Dharma is becoming a global tradition. Like thousands and thousands of people here watched the Ram Janmabhoomi inauguration, like crying with joy here in America.
Exactly.
It was broadcast on Times Square. The whole thing broadcast live on Times Square in New York City. It was a huge deal here in the West. Like this has become a global family and a global tradition. And I think that Sanatanis of all schools, Ramanandis, Shaivas, Shaktas, Advaitins, Dvaitins, Madhvas, everybody, can really start to come together, as this is not like a local Indian thing, a Bangladeshi thing. These traditions are not limited. Like the reach of Ayodhya is worldwide. Like this is really becoming, and I think that we can gain a lot of strength, especially you talk about the pressures in Bangladesh under Islam and so on. There's starting to be a global organized network that I think that we can help each other if we start to connect more and realize that there are people in the US who see Bangladeshi Hindus as us. That's not like something that we don't care about. That's happening on the other side of the world. And I think that making these kind of connections stronger can help people.
I want to add something to you. Whenever I was in the US, I made a campaign about the swastika campaign, especially in US, in New York. When the Durga Puja came on, the ladies who belongs to West Bengal or Bangladesh, they used to wear the swastika saris, the swastika saris.
Yeah.
So they got lashes, and even from the Jainists, they got lashes from them and make very derogatory comments that
because of the
you're
swastika
wearing
on the
Nazi
West.
sign. Yes. That's why me and one of my friends called Vincent Bruno, he's from Italy. So we made a campaign in Central Park, New York City. So we got a huge response, and the network became very strong. That we commenced the Hindu Student Association in New York City.
Yeah.
And afterwards, we have applied for the Diwali holidays in New York City City Council. So yes, indeed, you are right. Absolutely right about it.
Yeah.
So thank you, Devala.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our standard time is 1 hour, but I must say you have attracted the audience with the 1 hour and 22 minutes. That's the grace of Lord Ganesha and Lord Rama together on you.
Thank you.
It is a pleasure to have you in our side and have a wonderful conversation and this 1 hour 22 spiritual journey with you. I think the audience enjoyed a lot and get to know much more things which we cannot avail and edified it in our Thailand, in Bangladesh. So our page is not only about in Bangladesh, but also in India, in West Bengal, Assam, Tripura, and the Seven Sisters of the India.
Yep.
So I was really thrilled. I was really thrilled that this is the first time in Hindu Tribune I am going to have a conversation with an Hindu scholar who resided in Portland, USA. So and I thought some of your friends commented that you have a Zoom session regarding the knowledges. I think yes, that's the one. Textbook on Vedic knowledge. We study the Vedas with you every Sunday on Zoom at 9 a.m. Central Time. Anyway, so that would be all. I hope I'm going to join you if you permit me to join in your Zoom session, so that we could have a very fruitful conversation. And I really miss our main admin, Dr. Rakesh Dash. He was very much thrilled about you, and he was looking forward to join you. But because of a family function, he was getting busy. But thank you very much.
Devala. Thank you.
I hope that one day you and me going to have another fruitful session, especially in Mahashivratri is upcoming, knocking at our door.
Yeah.
So maybe you and me going to have a very fruitful conversation about the Lord Shiva.
I would be happy to. Yeah.
I will welcome you in this page so that we could have a very good conversation, a spiritual journey in this page. Thank you very much. That would be all. Thank you, dear audience. I want to say something in Bengali, if you permit me, Devala.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. ধন্যবাদ সকলকে আমাদের সাথে থাকার জন্য। এত সময় ধরে দেবালার সাথে আমাদের অনেক সুন্দর সুন্দর কনভারসেশন হয়েছে, অনেক স্পিরিচুয়াল কনভারসেশন হয়েছে, অনেক স্ক্রিপচারাল এভিডেন্স, অনেক স্ক্রিপচারাল রেফারেন্স আমরা জানতে পেরেছি। অদ্বৈত বেদান্ত সম্পর্কে জানতে পেরেছি যে অদ্বৈত বেদান্ত শুধুমাত্র আমাদের এই বাংলাদেশ বা শুধু ভারতবর্ষে সীমাবদ্ধ নয়, সেটা আমেরিকাতেও নক করছে এবং দেবালার মতো লোকজন আমাদের সাথে কানেক্ট হচ্ছে এবং আমরা একটা বড় হিন্দু গ্লোবাল চ্যানেল বা বড় হিন্দু গ্লোবাল একটা কানেকশন তৈরি করতে পারছি। ইন ফিউচার আমরা বড় কিছু হয়তো করতে পারবো। আমাদের সাথে থাকবেন, পেজের সাথে থাকবেন। ধন্যবাদ সকলকে। ধর্মস্য জয়স্থু অধর্মনাশস্থু শিব রক্ষিতঃ। হর হর মহাদেব। নমঃ শিবায়। জয় শ্রীরাম।